Hi, my name is John Mancini with Content Results, and I'd like to welcome you to Industry Perspectives. This is an occasional series that I put together relative to people and processes and technologies that I find of interest. And so today I want to start with something that may seem a little arcane, and it's understanding FADGI and how it connects to proposed new NARA regulations with regards to digitization of permanent records. So, first of all, FADGI, what does it stand for? And it stands for Federal Agencies Digital Guidelines Initiative. And a company I do some work with, Quality Associates, did a really interesting report on this recently. And I think it's worth taking a look at because what FADGI is and how it is applied has direct relevance to a new set of regulations that's currently in the comment stage at the Federal Register. So this started in 2007. It was basically a collaborative effort that put a little structure around how federal agencies dealt with digitization. So elements of this included three main things. One was technical guidelines and parameters. The second were best practices. And the third were digital imaging conformance evaluation criteria, or DICE. And the idea was to come up with a set of 1, 2, 3, 4-star guidelines tied to the quality of imaging processes and the quality of the images that are produced. And so when you think about this, basically, here's what they look like. And so you can kind of get a sense, those of you that have been in the imaging space for a long time, know the difference between sticking a piece of paper on a scanner and just getting a static image, and the difference between that and a really quality image in which text can be extracted, in which information can be extracted, that essentially is a substitute for the original document. So these are the 4-star criteria. And if you want to think about this in more generic terms, here's kind of a sense of what it's all about. 1 or 2-star ratings for content and images frequently accessed. 3-star ratings. This might include the ability to extract information off of the image. And then 4-star ratings, which is essentially used in fine arts and things like that for documents that shouldn't be handled anymore, touched, or anything like that. So keep this in mind because it ties to a new set of regulations that are being proposed right now. So that brings us to the NARA proposed digitization standards for permanent records. And so this is out for comment right now. It's been in gestation for probably for 18 months or so. NARA has been talking about that. Comments are due back on February 1st. You see the link there if you want to propose comments. And I just wanted to cover a couple things relative to those FADGI digitization standards. There's another element of this that ties to the frequency with which agencies have to look at their retention policies. But I'm not going to talk about that today. I want to focus in on the digitization standards. So what's in there right now is, and it's important to remember, that the rulemaking only covers permanent records. And you see the definition of permanent records on the screen. And so permanent records are a small subset of all of the records that are kept by agencies. And so the main thing to keep in mind, it's about 2 or 3% of all the records that are scanned or all the records that are present in any agency. Typically 2 or 3% are really classified as permanent records in the context of this definition. But the important thing to remember here is that the proposed rulemaking essentially calls for FADGI 3-star image quality levels. You see them on the right-hand side of the screen, for any records that are permanent and are going to be transferred to the National Archives. So the implications of this for agencies is that if you have records that are not in compliance with this, that haven't been ascensioned yet to the National Archives, but will at some point, you might have to go back and redigitize some of those records. And so then the last thing that I wanted to cover is that what happens if you can't? And so the regulation proposes 3 things. First is that you can send the paper records prior to the M1921 December 31st, 2022 deadline. You can work with NARA to develop an agency-specific record schedule that addresses all of this, or you can request an exception as part of the overall strategic response to M1921. So the important thing to keep in mind is permanent records, Permanent records are a relatively small subset of all the records that are kept by an agency, and that FADGI 3 is basically the guideline that's going to have to be met moving forward. So as you think about this, 2 action items I would just leave you with today. First, it's worth a refresh of your knowledge of what FADGI is and how it works. And the QAI white paper is a really good place to start in terms of just getting familiar with that. And then secondly, if you are in the digitization business on either the solution provider end or on the agency end, you might want to take a look at those standards that are out for comment. Only about another week left in order to look at them, and the link is up on the screen. So again, this is John Mancini for Industry Perspectives, and thank you for your time.